WWE didn't stay on top for over 40 years by luck. They positioned themselves as something totally different, and that changed the game. Let's talk about the history of WWE. It's very long, but for the sake of this video, I'll keep it brief. Before WWE became the global powerhouse it is today, let's go back to the territory days prior to 1982. Back then, you had many regional territories across the US, all governed by the National Wrestling Alliance. Each had their own local TV deals, local marketing, and talent. Also, the WWE, which was originally the Capital Wrestling Corporation, separated from the NWA in 1963, renaming themselves as the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. In 1982 is when things really started to shake up in the wrestling world, thanks to Vincent Kennedy McMahon, a man who is both seen as a visionary and a villain. He purchased the company from his father and renamed it the World Wrestling Federation because he wanted to revolutionize the world of wrestling by taking it nationally. Vince never told his father his vision for turning wrestling into entertainment. Vince's vision started to take form. However, success did not come easy for Vince, and he would be met with huge backlash and competition. As Vince wanted to take his product nationally, other promotions that had TV deals on lock. Saturday, July 14th, 1984 is when things got ugly. Vince, due to purchasing a controlling interest in NWA promotion Georgia Championship Wrestling, aired WWF programming on GCW's time slot. Imagine you're sitting at home chilling on a Saturday evening getting ready to watch your favorite TV show, but something else comes on instead. You'd be mad too, right? The reason why this didn't work is because the WWF programming was a flop, and this is due to the major differences between the WWF and other promotions. WWF's product was way more over the top and more character driven, and other promotions like the NWA and AWA were more sports driven. However, WWF would rebound from this failure by establishing a partnership with MTV, which was known as the Rock and Wrestling Connection. Now, this was due to WWF manager Lou Albano appearing in Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun hit single. And a storyline was formed in the aftermath of this, and MTV broadcast the first live wrestling match on cable TV on July 23rd, 1984, called The Brawl to End It All, and WWF wrestlers continued to appear in Cyndi Lauper's music videos. Now, at the time, this was a shocking yet strategic move by the WWF because it allowed them to get more eyes on their product. At the time, MTV had become massively popular, and the WWF took advantage. In 1985, the WWF created WrestleMania, which would become their biggest event of the year. Vince McMahon threw all his eggs in one basket, banking on the success of WrestleMania. The future of the World Wrestling Federation was hanging in the balance. WWF promoted WrestleMania as the Super Bowl of professional wrestling, which was a high-profile supercard event, which was nothing new at the time, but what was new was the introduction of celebrities like Mr. T and the aforementioned Cyndi Lauper and Muhammad Ali. Because of this, WrestleMania was a huge success. And the key move here was introducing sports entertainment as a new category. Vince McMahon didn't see his product as just professional wrestling. He coined the term sports entertainment, which was a marketing move to potential advertisers and to prevent being subjected to regulations like other competitive sports. So what is sports entertainment? Sports entertainment is the combination of both spectacle and athleticism. Think of it as an athletic performance for fans. As I'm going through this video, editing this video, one thing I forgot to mention is that WWE purchased their competition. They purchased WCW, they purchased ECW, they purchased AWA and other promotions. That is the biggest reason why they won the wrestling wars. Now that we've covered WWE's history, let's touch base on WWE's core brand. They're all about storytelling, spectacle, and emotion. Week after week, this is seen in their weekly shows and premium live events. And their mission is to provide entertainment for all ages at 52 weeks a year, non-stop across their main shows, Raw, NXT, Evolve, SmackDown, exclusive shows, and monthly premium live events. And all off season, all gas, no breaks with it.
Got it on me!
Now, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Sometimes I find myself exhausted as a fan trying to keep up with everything that's happening in WWE. That's why I stick to social media and YouTube highlights. Now let's move on to merchandising, media, and how they capitalize on the mainstream. WWE's merchandise is key to the fan experience. Fans want to feel like they're a part of the show as they wear merchandise of their favorite wrestlers and replica championships. As a WWE fan, I've collected many shirts, video games, and action figures over the years, some of which I still have to this day. WWE produces various forms of media, weekly shows, premium live events, exclusive series, music, and movies on a consistent basis. And It's established in the 1980s rock and wrestling era. WWE continues to collaborate with celebrities and big-name athletes. Now, I mentioned Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper, so here are a few modern examples. Let's talk about Logan Paul, who is a controversial figure. Logan Paul, who is one of the most popular YouTubers in the world, officially signed with WWE as a WWE superstar. You have Ice Show Speed, who is one of the most popular streamers in the world, appeared in the 2025 Royal Rumble, live streaming the event from his perspective, and he had a viral moment getting speared by WWE superstar Braun Breaker. Let's talk about Bad Bunny, who is one of the most streamed artists in the world, who faced off against WWE superstar Damian Priest in his home country of Puerto Rico at Backlash 2023. And Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson. Now, WWE basically predicted the 2025 Eastern Conference Finals by having Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson show up on an episode of SmackDown and have a face-off against each other in the middle of the ring. And they continuously do this on a weekly basis because if you're watching an episode of Raw, NXT, or SmackDown, you'll sometimes see celebrities in the audience. All right, so let's move on to the brand evolution. WWE's brand evolved over time, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Let's talk about the golden era from 1984 to 93. And this was all about the superheroes, the mainstream, family-friendly, over-the-top product. Now, the fan reaction is that they loved the spectacle, but some wrestling purists found it cartoon. And what triggered this was the growth of cable TV, the growth of MTV, and the aftermath of WrestleMania. Now let's move on to New Generation from 93 to 97. This was all about a cleaner image. This is when the WWE decided to focus more so on youth and more technical talent rather than the swole, larger-than-life wrestlers. And this was a mixed reaction from the fans. You had people like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels carrying the company, but the larger-than-life stars were on their way out. And what triggered this was the huge steroid scandal. It was like the early 90s. You can do more research on that. I won't get into all the details of it. You can do more research on the steroid trials surrounding Vince McMahon. It was a huge controversy going on at the time. And also, the big name stars like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man, they started to move to other companies. They went to WCW around this time. WWE had to rebuild, even though they saw the big names leaving. They had to move to the other wrestlers who were very willing and very capable of carrying the company. Now, honestly, this was the era where they started to see a massive dip in the quality of the product. They started to see their lowest ratings and people weren't buying tickets as much. People weren't really investing in the product because they either grew out of it or they just didn't find it interesting anymore. Now let's move on to the Attitude Era, which is regarded by fans as one of the best eras of all time. This was from 97 to 2002. This was all about being edgy, rebellious, unpredictable. And what triggered this was the WCW competition and the cultural shift that was happening around that time. During the 90s, it was all about rebellion. You start to see it in the TV shows. You start to see it in movies and pop culture. It was all about rebellion, and WWE had to capitalize on this. They start to see record numbers. They had their highest TV ratings, highest ticket sales, highest pay-per-view numbers. They blew up around this time. Now let's move on to the Ruthless Aggression Era, which is the era that I personally grew up in. It was just from 2002 to 2008. And the key focus of this is all about new stars, physicality, and the brand split. You start to see Raw and SmackDown, which was their two major shows, they start to become separate brands in themselves. The fan reaction was a bit mixed because it took a lot of time for the fans to warm up to the Ruthless Aggression Era because the big names like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock were leaving. They were on their way out the door. And let's talk about the PG era, which was from 2008 to 2013. The PG era was all about going back to that family-friendly, corporate-safe, polished product. And the hardcore fans hated this because they got tired of John Cena being positioned as the main guy. And what triggered this was the Chris Benoit tragedy. I won't go into all the details of that. Again, you have to look this stuff up because it is a lot. It was a very tragic situation. WWE had to clean up their act, had to implement a whole wellness policy just so situations like that wouldn't even happen again. Now let's talk about the WWE reality era from 2014 to 2016. Now this was all about being more fan aware. WWE started to take the reactions that they were getting from the fans and use it for their storylines and kind of turn it against them. Triple H basically cut a scathing promo on the fans, basically roasting them for complaining about the product. And he was saying stuff like,
"Me and my friend Mark, we're gonna stop watching.
We don't get what we want, we're gonna stop watching," which was basically the fan sentiment at the time. The fans had really started to become very vocal. They took to Twitter, they took to social media and voiced their frustrations about the product at the time, which was, the product at the time was, there was less wrestling, there was more talking and less wrestling going on, especially on the women's side. And the fans were very vocal about, especially the women's matches, and that led to, the whole Give Divas a Chance movement on Twitter. I remember that was a thing, like back in 2015. Fans were advocating for WWE to give the women more opportunities. And I was very on board with that because at that time, I hated to see the women get the short end of the stick. The women were competing in 3-minute matches, 2-minute matches. Not much storylines were being developed on the women's side. It wasn't focused on their athleticism. It was more focused on their attitude. Like, heck, they were even called divas at the time, which carried a negative connotation. WWE really had to clean that up, which I'm really glad they did, because right now women's wrestling is really on top. This leads to the new era from 2016 to 2022. And this was all about global expansion, diversity, and athleticism. And fans started to react more positively to this